evening star. Oh, me. That my hunger and my need, the goal and solace of my roaming, be thou my aim and when I speed. Things come on not even a tide, like birds that weary of their roaming, and I would hasten to thy side. Oh, me.
With what sweet ecstasy I am come to salute the fabric of thy soul, the wholeness conceived immortally in our Father's mind and plan is never a part of that manifestation which is so much less than man. O beloved ones, the love of our Father and the love of the Holy Spirit enfolds you now, as always, with the dazzling light and splendor of his appearing. The appearing of God did not begin this moment or yesterday, but from the very beginning and forth through the entire historical span, the being of God, the light of God has extended its comfort to man in all ages when hope seemed dim, and as the light of a city afar off, the eternal provinces of God blazed forth their victory and their compassion to the earth. The voice of God, the authority of his legions of light, and the power of his righteousness as a breastplate, dazzling bright, as armor of celestial might, brought to mankind a realization of God's own light. And yet, today, the world lieth in some manner and vesture of wickedness. For the Holy Spirit and the covenants wrought of old are as forgotten and broken down memorials. And yet I bring you a page from the book of eternal comfort, and I shall pour forth to you this night the beauty from that page, which is fresh from the hand of God, spun from the substance of which his dreams are made, and not mortal things. I tell you then that your victory lies in that which cometh down from heaven, and that which is the part of reality, and not of density, or opacity, or shadow, or of despair. Now, blessed ones, the vibratory action of this room, which has been continually stepped up from the beginning of the service this night and before, shall rise to a greater height. If at first this seemed to some to be somewhat uncomfortable to the outer self, recognize that in the whiteness of the light and the release which we are sending forth this night, the entire planet is being bathed in the shining substance of our octave. This light which is bathing the earth is for the regeneration of man and for the production of a new epoch in consciousness, the removal of the cause and core of all mankind's submission to tyranny and despair, and the exaltation of the bonds of freedom which are freely given. For allegiance paid to the Most High God comes from the freedom of men's hearts, and they gladly and freely give to Him their love and the feelings of compassion which stir within their being for mankind by reason of the existence of His being and presence within their temple. O precious ones, mankind so frequently are unaware of the nearness of God, and yet God is always aware of the being of man, for it is His own substance, His own holy light. I come this night to bring you comfort, to bring you joy, and to bring you awareness of that which shall give you immortal comfort and shall raise you out of the density of man's consciousness through the process of chrysalis and through the enthronement of the holy light of God to the very pinnacle of your being, where the power of the spiritual eye unfolding shall behold the light of God that does not fail, as the substance not only of thy body, but also of thy mind, and not only of thy mind, but also of thy heart, and not only of thy heart, but the substance of all mankind, which is not apart from the reality of God, but only seems so. And in this seeming there is the appearance of pain and despair. But when we shatter mortal concepts, and when we pour through the atmosphere the mighty light rays of superior radiance from God, then with the descent of the streaming ribbons of light and white fire substance, there is a process of regeneration which occurs not only within the consciousness, but even within the consciousness of the electrons themselves dancing in the magnificent structure of your body and being. Oh, precious ones, if you could only see as I do and recognize the folly of your own errors, I am sure that you would mend them the sooner. And yet, because the density of mankind, self-appointed it is true, continues to hold sway and dominion over man's world, we find a continual need to replenish them with the substance from on high. Now it would be a great delight to us if you could attain to that self-luminous state which we have attained unto, whereby you not only could regenerate yourselves, but also others of lesser understanding and development. For the world is truly in the process of change. Vast and sweeping changes, some unheralded, are now even appearing as advent upon the horizon. Those prophets and gifted ones who can expand the power of their illumination flame and also the spirit of prophecy are able to look and to gaze with hope upon all that is appearing. And yet there come solitary moments when it seems a cloud curtain of the darkest night is upon mankind, and he trembles in a cup of fear. This must be broken. And the continual unbroken awareness of the light of God and his continuity must replace that manifestation of up and down. Truly, as one of your own individuals in this group said recently, the consciousness of man is like a yo-yo. It rises up on the cord of its spiritual light into the very hands of God and then descends down into the sewers and dredges of life. But, some of you may say, the lotus blossoms in the swamp. And it is true. For even in the blackness of night and despair, men have taken renewed hope. They have recognized that their life, which is God, can be hallowed by devotion poured out without reserve. For of a truth, men do seem to think that they can gamble with God's holy energies, and they have a great myth in their consciousness which must be dissipated, and that is that their life is their own, whereas it is not. For when God bestowed free will upon mankind, it was simply necessary by reason of heaven's laws of perfection that men should achieve through the process of free will the divine union which was expected of them. For after all, precious ones, the surfeiting of mankind in the very confining sense of limitation which exists in his egoistic and ego-centered world ought to give proof enough to mankind that freedom is not to be found in the doing of man's will, but in the doing of God's will. And if I seem to sound somewhat in the vein of El Morya, may I call to your attention that we of the Ascended Master Octave are one in spirit. And we are also, I add by way of cosmic comfort, one in spirit with the law of truth that is within you. And this law is within you all. And if you will not pay it allegiance and will not pay it recognition, it will recognize you. And in that recognition of you, the real identity of yourself, there comes to life a God in the making. And this God in his revelation may find it necessary to chasten those whom he loves the most, that in this pruning action of cosmic comfort there might stand forth a man or woman of distinction and not extinction. For mankind, with all their search for comfort, would find if they did not obey cosmic law, that their life would be forfeit indeed into the dregs of despair, drained to the uttermost, and the cup, never empty, would continue to pour out life ceaselessly, flowing forth as a fountain, spraying upward and then down upon the ground beneath, not always with drops of mercy, but oftentimes with tears and sadness and fears and confusion. And yet the very substance of immortality, the consecrated and holy energies that came forth through the Christ consciousness, the regeneration that in Gethsemane did sweat great drops of blood, but yet did not fear to fulfill his mission, is also coming to the fore in all of you who will pay him allegiance now. You today will find your greatest comfort in that Christ communion, which is the reality of God, hiding behind the identity of yourself. It is as a child game of hide and seek, for mankind seems to hide while God seeks, and sometimes they seek while God hides. And yet in this game there is the manifestation of perfection, the evolvement of the eternal cycles, and the radiance of comfort descending with all. And so all will be consecrated according to their own consecration, and the measure thereof, which must flow forth through their own consecrated will, and not that of another. Today, the process of evangelism sweeps the world in part through the religious world, and appeals are made to mankind's emotional energies to come unto God. This, for a time, seems to move mankind through the process of fear, and yet God would move mankind through the appeals of love, through the tones of his holiness and purity, and through his nearness of spirit and identity to the self of man. I come then this night, representing the hierarchy, to bid you welcome to this harvest class, in consecration of ascended master ideals, and that this class may stand out in the annals of our releases as a great effort of gratitude to God, made manifest through the energies of all, and not of one alone or a few. And therefore tonight I appeal to you to recognize that this is no ordinary release or appeal which I am making, but one from higher octaves for a purpose, as El Morya would say. And tonight I am saying it, and I am saying it because the fruit of your obedience will manifest in a victory for many people whom your eyes will never see in this entire embodiment, except it be through that soul gaze which sweeps the world into the arms of God and loves men free, unborn and unseen as yet by mortal eyes. Generations await at the portals of birth. They knock and desire to come into this world of burden, that they may fulfill their immortal destiny. When they come, what sort of world, I ask you, will they find here? A world of your making, O mankind, for you act for God here, and handle his energies by the powers of your wills, by the powers of your thoughts, and even by your feelings and acceptance of light and perfection. Why then will ye tarry? Or why will ye be afraid? Know ye not that God ever rewards those who diligently seek him and serve his holy cause? There is no possibility of error to the heart that is unafraid and willing to face the very presence of immortality. And as the gaze meets the gaze of God, change occurs in the being of man, the manifestation. And strand by strand, there is a lowering of the comfort flame into the chalice of identity, until man, woven of God's own thoughts, becomes no longer a thing apart from heaven, but a very important part of heaven. Such is the love of God. The love that destines all to freedom's flame. The love that destines all to God's own being and name. I am then the name of God, the fiat of identity, can be uttered with realization. Realization that enters into the comfort flame at the gate of being, reality and truth and the power of love and the power that overcometh all things and will not accept tyranny that would destroy and would evaporate the oil of truth that is needed as fuel for the holy lamp that is blazing upon the altar. Replenish then, O wise virgins, the oil of Christ's identity. Replenish then the reality of heaven in your being, and you shall not stand as empty and dry reeds. You shall not stand as men devoid of spirit and spine, but you shall be straight, and you shall have the power to enter the narrow way and to sustain it. And you shall find the fulfillment of all prophecy and life occurring within your own consciousness. and comfort shall pour from you as rays of celestial radiance. And here below, as above, the flame and crown of life and comfort shall be given to all, as a dove with snow-white wings reflected in the purity of man's motives, celestial ideals for which you ought to give gratitude. For centuries men have thanked God for food, and so they ought. For centuries men have thanked God for substance and for shelter, and so they ought. For centuries mankind have thanked God for sea and earth and sky, and so they ought. But for centuries only the few have thanked him for the flame of immortality and of life and of celestial illumination and radiance and the heavenly gifts and the heavenly ideals and the heavenly qualities and the manifestation of the Christ himself in them. They have looked at one another as upon a harlot or a prostitute that they would put without the city and put to death. And they have desired to cast stones at one another, stones of confusion that engender fear and distress. Now I say then, let this all be put aside, and in the holy name of the Spirit of the great white brotherhood, let men no longer deride one another, but expand the flame of comfort by finding the celestial threads within others as well as in self, and pay allegiance to this God flame in all. And so all shall arise in comfort and in comfort's dove. And as on wings of snow-white radiance, God's love, through the power of the Holy Spirit, shall expand his truth, and the way shall be made plain, and confusion of mind shall not cause mankind to enter into divisive documents and doctrines which confuse and abuse the power of heaven's law, which is love, pure love, comfort, pure comfort, ideal, the plan divine unfolded in all. And so this night, while I shall not speak long, I speak poignantly of the great celestial garden of God, the place called paradise, the perfection consciousness where stress and strain is not, where the Lord God is the light of that city, where his radiance is not merely a figment, where his radiance is not merely a dream, but is a reality, and where the tangibility of the rays can be felt. And these rays are not only spelled R-A-Y-S, but R-A-I-S-E, to elevate the consciousness as his is. So then I say to all, be comforted this night, and be ye comforters of one another, and so fulfill the law of Christ. The theme for this class is one of dedication to divine ideals and the splendor of unity under the aegis of God and the armor of his perfection. As I long ago lay among you to compose ballads and sonnets of light, formed into the literature and rhetoric of past ages, so I now stand not to merely enthrall the mind of man, but to flood the spirit with light, so that its wings may expand and it may fly to the great dovecote, the place where comfort's dove abideth and cometh forth to bring peace and goodwill to men of goodwill. Salutem Christos. May God be with thee forever, and may you be with him. I thank you. Bid you good evening. unto the heart of God lies available to all who in faith will acknowledge his presence within their beating heart. The message of old, which was given in past ages, remains today the essential truth of life and has not been altered with the changing of the fashions or modes of the times. I am come this day to consecrate the earth afresh with the radiance of our entire root race, and in hope that the magnificent response for which I am calling will be manifest for the bounty of the earth and the exaltation of the flame of freedom in your time. In connection with the aspect of time, gracious hearts, may I point out that with God there is no actual sense of time, but only of being, and therefore you who function yet in this dimension no doubt are aware of past ages as though they are remote indeed and somewhat disconnected from the present hour. Yet, if you will contemplate for a moment the mighty reality of God, you will realize that his power of vision, spanning full circle all dimensions, functions in a cyclic manner rather than in a straight line beginning at one point and terminating at another. The consciousness of man functions so frequently in a straight line manner and is unable to realize the meaning of the eternal cycles. However, blessed ones, if you will cease to think as you have been taught, and this without danger but only blessing, you will realize that there is never any need to be caught in the mesh of space and time, so that you cannot find your freedom to expand into the eternal cycles, into the omnipresence of God. Only in the omnipresence of God can you find that freedom which the great law requires if you are to draw down the holy energies of God that will regenerate your present concepts and fashion you not in the manner of a man, but in the manner of a God. This is the fulfillment, O most precious ones, of the call of the Father from the beginning. For he in the beginning who framed the worlds did so with one thought in heart and mind, and that was to bestow upon the lovely creation which he himself made all of the benefits which he himself could conceive of. And in addition to that, he conceived of a transcendental image, transcending itself, so that greater things would be progressively in store for the manifestation of creation from age unto age. Your Father and mine, in his magnificent love, has made then available for man one great lave, one ocean of cosmic purity into which all may dip and remain if they will. So long as individuals feel that they are entering this ocean of God and then emerging from it, they cannot be a part of the full manifestation of God by reason of their own humanly created sense of limitation. For when individuals feel a sense of separateness from God, it results in a certain quality being created within their consciousness, which acts as a stop for the release of God's energy and does not permit the full free flow of that holy energy that will carry them forward into the transcendental nature of the deity. As I look back on my own service, for I am indeed a Manu. I call to your attention that the life waves now occupying the planet do not consist of any one pure strain, but consist of many strains, and there has occurred an intermixing of mankind, whereby today the earth is composed of creations from other planets and systems of worlds and evolutions and life waves from many sources, all brought together in the fulfillment of cosmic destiny in this time, presided over by your own beloved Saint Germain, the God of freedom for this age. I call to your attention then that it does not make any difference insofar as the great law is concerned whether or not the planetary platform is occupied by men of one specific group or of many. All have a certain duty to perform, and that is the working out of their individual destinies from the consciousness of the present moment. To go back into the past, precious ones, is well and good if you can come forth into the present and recognize that each day you are weaving a strand of that which shall be the holy future. If this future is to be in accordance with the divine plan, it cannot consist of the old habits and patterns which have not brought freedom to the earth, but it must consist of the new weavings made in the image and consciousness of God. It does not matter to me whether or not mankind have their own concepts, for men of lesser spiritual stature have always been preoccupied with their own opinions, which have not affected the universe one iota except that dimension in which they abide. For the ring passed not, surrounding the earth and the evolutions, is an action of the cosmic law itself. Those who do pass through the ring pass not, and I hope that you realize that man who has free will can sometimes transcend cosmic law in this sense, that they bypass that law and go contrary to it to swim against the stream. Mankind have many erroneous notions. They do not realize that when God sets up a ring pass not, that it is a resistance to hold back the life waves from discovery of other octaves and powers when they cannot yet cope with the realm of the present and those powers which are already given to them. Let me be specific, precious one. You are given, for example, energy and strength to move your physical body, to think and to do. When you insist on having your own way in a stubborn fashion, and you lose your temper at one another, for example, this is a release of energy which demonstrates that you have not apprehended the fullness of God to have dominion over all of your energy. If you then are given more energy, does it not mean that you could use that additional energy to wreak havoc in a much greater measure than you presently do when you do not control your energies? Do you see then, precious ones, that the mercy of the great law gives to every individual a certain allotment of energy and trusts that they will attempt to govern that holy energy? If, however, they insist on making application to the heart of God for additional energy, as, for example, when you give your decrees to the light and invocations, you are bound to receive a greater portion of cosmic energy through the use of these decrees. This is why, precious ones, some individuals who themselves may be simple and kind of heart, because they draw forth a tremendous energy in decrees, must guard against the losing of their temper, for they are given a much greater outpouring and allotment of energy through the use of decrees, and possess, in addition to great capacity for good, a capacity to thoughtlessly express that which is negative. Therefore, all energy is a divine prize, which is given to mankind, that he might master that holy energy and remain ensconced, as it were, upon the lotus throne of identity, expressing the cosmic radiation of peace and purity. Now, precious ones, the ring pass not is like unto this. Individuals who insist, for example, in probing the outer reaches of space, might pass through the belts of the ring pass not of this planet and enter in to other planetary octaves and spheres. This does not mean that they do so with impunity, nor does it mean that they will always be happy in this expression unless it is well merited and well deserved, in which case the ring pass not will itself gently open up unto them and provide a passage whereby they may go, as it were, beyond the known and charted seas into the realms of dimensions beyond the present ken of mankind. So it is with all things. The great divine law of God functions according to the various octaves and planes of consciousness, and the law which appoints the bounds of man's habitation, stating, "Thou shalt pass no further," does function according to the divine dictums of the Most High God. Individuals possessed with free will, however, if they insist upon battering the gates of heaven, may take heaven by storm and pass beyond those dimensions which are their own worth and measure of attainment. I therefore point out to you how that the law, in its great aspects of mercy, has made known to all mankind who will accept it the hand of God in expression, guiding the emerging life stream into the full radiance of its own victory. Victory is achieved then through the mastery of all present opportunities. Victory is attained then through the mastery of your present world right where you are. And whenever you have demonstrated your mastery over those conditions, I am certain that life in its great wisdom will provide new and marvelous attitudes and goals for your vision in its own well-merited advancement, until you will find your understanding increasing by leaps and bounds, and you will find your joy will rise up with it. For when individuals are beset and plagued with doubts and fears because they have sought to probe that unknown measure of life which God has not yet readied them for they themselves have not yet readied themselves for it, then I am certain they must realize that the law must act according to its own principles and cannot be governed by mankind's own concepts concerning the law. The law itself is very wise, precious ones, and this wisdom was expressed in the concept of Eden. Mankind were told in the Edenic state that they ought not to eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And yet, as the story was unfolded, the woman did eat and passed to the man. And so, all of this disobedience resulted in the expulsion from the Edenic state of consciousness and the manifestation of the protecting cherubim to guard the way of the tree of life. God, in his great wisdom, has set the higher dimensions of life before mankind. It is not wrong, precious ones, to seek to have increased understanding, but it is important that men understand that the purpose of understanding and increased vision and increased consciousness of the mysteries of God is that you may shew forth a more ordinate life, one that is compensatory in the most important measures of that which you ought to do toward God and man. You cannot, precious ones, wander through the world as a star of light, enjoying the transit of your own shining, watching and observing your own passing as those who admire themselves in a form of narcissism. You must be willing to recognize that you play a role upon the great stage of life, a cosmic drama, and that you are a part of all that manifests. But you must also realize that the only way in which you can enter in to the heart of God and the heart of your real identity is by entering in to the heart of humility that recognizes the role of others and recognizes in the achievements of others your own achievements. You must seek genuinely then to expand the light in all men and upon the planet and in the universe. For all who are of the nature of God, by reason of the holiness of his nature, will express his qualities to others. And as they express his qualities, they magnify those qualities in themselves and in other parts of life. Individuals have no right to expect or to demand of one another a certain manifestation, for they are given a gateway into the precincts of their own hallowed being, and they are guardians of that gateway. When they then shall recognize that their first responsibility is toward their higher self, and they shall reach up hands of light and love toward their own divine presence, they will find that the power of that presence to confer upon them the mastery of their own world is the greatest gift they can ever receive. And they will realize that when they seize the hands of their own divine presence and walk with God and are God-taught, that they are expressing the very tenets of the teachings which I myself as a Manu did and do continue to teach to those of my root race. I think then you must recognize that your own beloved Saint Germain and the other Manus are expressing in a like manner the holiness of God and expressing the same admonitions, for the message for each age has remained essentially the same. We have only dealt with evolutions and life waves in a different state of consciousness, but all are expanding, all are being drawn toward a higher octave of light if they will only recognize the great cosmic pull and will play their role in the divine drama as God intends. What I say to you today is a statement of light for your illumination. It is the requirement of this hour, precious ones, for through expanding the power of the light within you, the planetary body shall glow with greater substance of the sacred fire. And then some of the conditions upon the earth which you presently lament will be changed, and all will be changed from glory unto glory, even as by the Spirit of the Lord. For all individually will enter through the veil into the holy place of their own being, where they shall procure from the great Shekinah glory of God the substance of the sacred fire, the utterance of the ineffable name, the speaking forth of the fiat of victory, which shall alter conditions within their own force field, that wherever they go, they trail garments of glory and victory, which all may bask in. Be then a sun where you go. Be then a golden orb of illumination and peace. Be then a consecrated soul, and you will fulfill the destiny of the immortals. So long as you walk in the manner of mankind, you are but a manifestation in part of your great deity. But when you shall let the hallowed radiance of the Most High God shine forth through your physical form, through your higher mental body, into your mental body, and through your emotional body, and through your etheric body, you will find that the completeness of the law of the eternal cycles is being fulfilled in you from day to day, you will know that the Christ or light of the world is the same yesterday, today, and forever, and you will be a part of his consciousness that overcomes the world and its own fraudulent ideas of change, which does indeed tend in many cases to change to the worse rather than the better, for the fixation is upon the things of materiality and accomplishment, and does not take into account the golden rule and the law of God. Nor is this fair to the individual himself, for mankind insist upon being obsessed with a consciousness of their own identity without recognizing the holiness that may be experienced by an inflow of the power of deity into the individual matrix and force field of all. Every individual has then a threefold flame. Every individual has a divine presence. Every individual may acknowledge this grace, and every individual can have his victory if he will hold to the great day star of his being that makes his calling and election sure. Without this, I cannot predicate a future for you that is as God intends. But with this idea and service, you will find that the fulfillment of immortality is actually carried out within the circle of your identity. Ladies and gentlemen, I summon your holy energies for the earth and for the work of the great ones. The spirit of the great white brotherhood goeth forth and calls unto mankind to awaken from the lethargy of the centuries and to recognize that this is the day of the Lord, that this is the day of his salvation, that this is the hour when his hand shall be shown forth to those who will hear his voice and recognize the need to reinforce their own attitudes of righteousness by the power of divine righteousness and truth, which cannot be broken, and yet is the very substance of the body of Christ's illumination for all. I thank you, and I bid you a pleasant good afternoon in the felicitous bonds of ascended master love.
I love you truly, truly, dear. Life with its sorrow, life with its tear, fades into dreams when I feel you are near. For I love you truly, truly, dear. Our love 'tis something to feel your kind hand.
Ah, yes, 'tis something by your side to stand.
Gone is the sorrow,
Gone doubt and fear, for you love me truly.
truly, dear. I love you truly, truly, dear. I
Ladies and gentlemen of heaven, I salute the great God flame that is within you, and I ask that you be exalted in consciousness to come with me into the octaves of light, where beauty shines in its great, eternal effulgence, divested of mortal substance, and manifesting in the spiritual octaves of light, shining with all of the joy and the jewels that the angels have woven into that manifestation of God's own holy treasure. Precious ones, the flame of liberty pulsates within your heart, and this flame of liberty, in all of its exquisite beauty, is a drawing nigh unto your worlds of the substance of our octave. When the flame of life that is within you is amplified by your conscious attention to this flame, an expansion occurs which brings to you a greater sense of the power of God, the will of God, and His faith. When you become aware of the pulsations of the golden element of this threefold flame, the holy pulsations of illumination do rise, and you feel inspired to understand the universe as though your mind were one with God's own. But when you enter in to the third portion of this triune aspect of your own liberty flame, the flame of divine love, the pink radiance over which I preside as Chohan, you become aware of the great love for God and the great love of God for His creation. There is an affinity, a duality implanted within love, which causes the created thing to also aspire to love the Creator. And there is within the heart of the Creator a manifest token that will not let Him forget that He Himself abides within the warp and woof, the very fabric of temporal creation. As I gaze at the splendor then of the higher octaves, I call to each one of you to forsake the concepts of mortality which have not brought you the fullness of that release of spiritual victory which God intends for you all. The substance of heaven and its precious treasure is your own, but only when you make it so. We have labored in the past to outpicture the fullness of God's beauty upon earth. When I was embodied as Paolo Veronese, I did indeed graft to canvas and with paint the substance that caused mankind to admire and to love the more cultural treasures of the world, and to drink into that culture by inward realization, so that the wonders of art were for the ennoblement of the mind of man. And so to the present day, these concepts remain. But as I have told you since, when I gaze backward through the power of memory and see that which was wrought, although recognized and acknowledged by mankind to this present hour as a work of splendid achievement, I do feel that it is poor by comparison to genuine soul and spiritual beauty. And I say to you today that if your eyes could see, as I do, the wonders of the immortal octaves of light, you would hasten the day of the appearance of your victory, signified by the pulsation of the liberty flame within your own consciousness, and you would find less inclination to dally in the lurid and sensational archives of mankind's own feelings and abortions of the divine intent. The corridors of human memory are open unto me, and I can as freely walk in those corridors and hallways, those dead-end streets that lead nowhere, as I can walk also in the celestial galleries of light and love. And for a moment, I would tell you something of the avenues of disservice which mankind are often committed to by reason of an abortion of the world of art and literature. You know, blessed ones, that many famous books are the creations of men and women and are widely read. These books are indeed creations of mortality, and yet by reason of acceptance by multitudes of people who have read them, meditated upon them, and given them their attention, they have actually expanded so that in the realm of thought, the fabric of that material, much of which is sordid and destructive, is spread and scattered abroad. And when individuals read this material, they drink into all of the sordid aspects of the mind of the author, together with the wrong aspects of those who have read this material, and therefore they are pulled down into a denser pattern rather than brought up into airy patterns of light and understanding. Now, I would like to point out that many of the authors of the world have contributed to the downfall of mankind. Of course, it is a matter of spiritual record that many men have also contributed to the upliftment of mankind, and these we bless. But those who have contributed to the downward pull upon mankind's desires are today sought after by the youth of the world, and many of them are trapped in these corridors of mankind's sordid memory, and they find as though they were in a dream state that they cannot extricate themselves therefrom, and they feel a sense of helplessness and a hapless feeling which is contrary to the pulsations of liberty's flame within their being. And because the flame of immortality within them seeks to express immortal freedom, there is a continuing sense of struggle and restlessness in their heart and being. They do not know the ways of peace, and they cannot find the avenues that lead to God because they are walking continually in those directions that are away from Him. When in some way, through the great laws of the mercy of life, an emissary of light is sent to them, they spurn this emissary in almost every case. For they who have need of salvation often do not seek or pursue it. And those who are already upon the path of light are those who snatch at every gem and make it their own treasure. And these then are adorned with splendid spiritual jewels and shine as the sun in splendor, whereas others walk as beggars and paupers across the highways and byways of life, but know it not. Of such as these, the word of the Christ has gone forth. Ye are naked, and ye are poor, and ye are blind, and ye are helpless. Depart from me, ye workers of iniquity, for I know you not. Of a truth, the Christ image, in all of the splendid beauty which God has implanted there, does not appear to such as these who have need of him. And you may wonder then why we continue to pour out upon those of you who seek a greater anointing to add to him who already has, and to take away from him who hath not that which he already has. This is a fulfillment, blessed ones, of the master plan of the universe, and it cannot be altered, but must be understood. Those who walk in darkness and fear the evils of darkness must someday come to awareness of their own free will. So long as the goods and treasures of spiritual life would be bestowed upon them, they would continue to walk in their own iniquitous ways and wander farther and farther from the ways of truth. But when the lords of karma in the great spiritual realms of light do set into motion the return currents of that which these individuals have sent out, and when that energy comes to them for redemption, it is a splendid and wonderful thing if it is understood correctly. For it is the fulfillment of the law of mercy which prevents and curbs wrong action so that individuals do not utterly destroy the very fabric of their soul. The mercy of God, when it is understood, not only works in the bestowal of divine gifts and graces, in a manifestation of love and wonder, but in the misqualified media of contrast does show up in a glaring manner to the consciousness of mankind those unlovely and unwanted qualities, so that they can recognize that which they ought to desire and feel in their emptiness and aloneness a measure of need for the power of light and for the power of heaven. This then refers also to the fact that the very heavens should be shaken and the stars should fall from their places. For men have, in the figure of some of your poets, hitched their wagon to a star of nothingness, and they have sought after false goals, and they have not known the way of peace and the way of righteousness, but they have continually imagined evil and that which departs from God. They have abode in a realm of shadow, and they know not eternal peace. Now then, let us recognize how the law works. In a space of a few short years, through a just application of the karmic lash, and even though it might be extended over several embodiments, blessed ones, if the karmic lash and the chastening of God can successfully prune human tendencies and cause individuals to exercise the passion of right desire for God, will it not then be the fulfillment of beauty in the life of that one? And will they not then come to their appointed place and the correct understanding of the law, which will cause them to love the rod, which when bestowed upon mankind is the fulfillment of his word, I chasten those whom I love. For God loveth all creatures, both great and small, as Kuthumi has said to me, standing in my presence now. And his love is spread as mighty wings over all. And those who know him and those who know him not are also beneath his rod which is also a magic wand to bestow the wonders of the infinite stars upon man's being, and compassion without limit, and the farther reaches of space and time, the web of continuum and continuity encompassing man is the very fabric of God. Upon this substance, the great light of immortality, only the interweavings of eternality are present, and these weavings are unparalleled in their loveliness. Those who are able to see into this octave are eternally blessed, for they are blessed with the fabric of eternity. And there is a difference. The difference is one of light and shadow. And I tell you, blessed ones, that the media of the light which the light requires for contrast is provided amply by individual attainment. For as one star differeth from another star in glory, so individuals in the hierarchical scheme of things do not manifest the full brilliance of the Son of God's being, but are positioned according to their development down the scale of the white light. And there is a correlative measurement, a co-measurement of spirit, which shows to all the great need, the power to draw from higher dimensions, the requirements of immortal realms. By this, I imply to those of you with understanding that there is a need for you to wear the garments of light here and now as you walk among men. You walk forth, blessed ones, clothed upon with the fashion of the times. You attire yourself so as to be in style, blessed ones. But if you were summoned this moment to stand in the presence of the elect, there is no human fashion or mode which could serve to hide you from the eyes of deity and the presiding power of the lords of karma. If you were summoned this instant to stand as it were naked before them, for this is how you would be if you were not clothed upon by garments of light, do you think it would avail you to come there attired in the most shapely garments of the day? I tell you, nay. For loveliness of mind, beauty of soul, compassion of consciousness, purity of motive, ordered service, devotion for truth, and the qualities of heaven are both garment and jewels to those who walk according to the tenets of our order. We cannot then, in the spirit of light, ignore the needs of men. And so, when we speak as I have spoken this morning, and this day, it is for the sole purpose of bringing you into greater awareness of the great heavenly galleries of light. For artists abide here also, and writers. Men of science abide here also. But these are men of heavenly science, versed in all the arts of mankind, but also blessed with all the divine arts. These are indeed sons of God. You can make them your own closest friends, for they stand ready and willing to serve your needs. But the law must be fulfilled, and you must inquire of them as to whether or not they will step forth and serve your needs, just as the magic lamp had to be rubbed by Aladdin, So mankind must consciously summon the powers of light and fulfill the law of being. We do not enter your homes or consciousness simply because you might have a weak or strong desire to improve yourselves. We come when bidden, and we stay so long as we can comfortably abide in the aura of your thoughts. When your thoughts abide in concepts of loveliness and exaltation, Gloria in excelsis Deus, we then are able, through the consciousness of God, to sustain an elevated momentum in your own force field. But when, through your own purpose or design, or through happenstance, you depart the higher concepts and enter into the vibratory action of the sordid and destructive, we must of necessity bow out and excuse ourselves, for we cannot remain there to nurture and to foster such types of action which are contrary to the holy purposes. Therefore understand it is not an act in any way designed to harm you, or an act of aloofness or discourtesy on our part when we do not remain with you. It is a necessity, for we cannot sustain or amplify those qualities which are not noble. Take then this holy truth and make it your own, and draw then all of the ascended masters into proximity to your force field, and receive from us those incomparable treasures of light which are ours to bestow with joy upon you. You know, precious ones, you will abide in our octave, or at least out of your physical form, far longer than you have abode in this form. Therefore it is necessary that you understand that it is our intent to bring to every man his freedom this day, his great liberty. For of all the objects of loveliness which I have ever painted, the most beautiful painting which I have ever made was a simple attempt to duplicate the threefold flame within the heart of man. For this threefold flame in all of its radiant outpicturing is a design of God himself, fashioned of the power and faith of his being, fashioned of the divine intelligence, fashioned of divine love. It continues to spring up as the fabled fountain of Ponce de Leon. It is a manifest presence of God anchored right within the human heart. It is there to sustain a focus of beauty within the force field of yourself. It shrinks when you turn your back upon decency and loveliness, and it expands as you approach the deity. This is your flame, the great treasure house of spiritual power, knowing, and love. It is yours to nourish and sustain and expand. It is a gift of the Eternal Father. And if I were to individually make a portrait of you, each one, and if I were to make a portrait of you that had the power to bestow upon you the qualities of immortality and true liberty, I would draw upon that threefold flame within each of you. And I would fashion this portrait as the true self. Human dross is not thyself. It is thy refined gold, thy illumination, thy expression of reality that leads thee Godward. May the great golden eagle from Venus speed thee heavenward and lift thee up and bear thee toward octaves of cosmic purity in thought and motive. So shall noble men stand forth upon earth recipients of our holy charge, so shall the kingdom flourish. So shall many sons find their freedom. Ladies and gentlemen, I bow to the God flame within all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, I commend you to the keeping of the one who has taught you that all life is one. Good afternoon in the bonds of divine love. Most gracious ones, I am come this morning to raise you in consciousness to a span above the human level, where you may understand that which mankind do not as a rule perceive, and yet the necessity for this understanding is great. I would speak to you first of camels, for in the desert, near our temple, these beasts of burden are most useful in traversing the great expanse of sand and sky which men need to do. You have heard it said that it is more difficult to enter into the kingdom of God than for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle. Let me say to you that mankind have theorized upon this subject at length, and some have framed the concept that God, who doeth all things well, and created the camel, could dissolve the camel, and then as a wind pass the substance through the eye of a needle, on the other side to reassemble that substance, until once again the form of the camel stood in the full glory of the beast of the desert. Others have brought forth the concept that God could enlarge the eye of the needle until the camel could with ease walk through. And still others have said that the eye of the needle was a pass most difficult for even a horse to pass through, which could be traversed and could be passed through by a camel with great difficulty. This morning, it is not my intent to discuss the subject of camels with you, but one of greater import. And yet I have used this initial opening not necessarily to evoke smiles, for I have been called a master of austerity, but in order to relate certain matters most conveniently to the subject of this discussion of this day. Now, precious ones, my subject then is holy substance and communion. Verily, the substance of thy world has been released to thee through the rays of light that have descended from thy God presence. Verily, all of this substance has manifested naught else but cosmic purity. Verily, the stream of the divine consciousness has come forth with all of the radiance of celestial spheres manifesting in it and through it. And from this holy substance, as blown by the wind of the Holy Spirit, this has passed as through a tiny aperture or the eye of a needle, that substance, into the miniature being of man in his present state of becoming. Each individual upon earth has received a portion of this celestial radiance, and in the use thereof there has been woven all of the densities that compose individuality. Your physical form is perhaps the best example I could use of the drawing forth of energy and passing it through the orifice of being until it expands. For a tiny baby does indeed begin to assimilate nourishment and then expand, stretching his tiny limbs until suddenly a man appears where a child stood, and the form is expanded by that which is taken into the mouth. This energy then, this substance that is drawn forth from the good earth, comes also from the sun's holy radiance. For all the grain of the field is indeed a product of the sun and of the wind and of the earth, of the fire of God, causing it to spring forth and germinate, and to arise in the full-blown glory of nature and express before your eyes neath sun and sky. And ye take this substance into your mouths, and this substance of the holy grains, this substance of the earth, in all of its goodness, does build the body temple, beautifully executed by the forces of nature, and outpicturing a portion of heaven's own loveliness, sculptured more wondrously than Michelangelo or the great and recognized men of earth. The physical body temple in all of its intended grandeur is indeed an object of beauty. Yet this substance has come forth and passed through the orifice of your mouth into your physical body until it has expanded to its present state. You have partaken also of the waters and of the fruit and of many sweet essences. But you are not a mere body. You are also much more. And you have partaken also in the mental world of the divine intelligence of God, that which knoweth that I am I. And in this sense, sacred essences have flowed into your consciousness this pure stream, until all of that which composes your individual selves, both visible and invisible, is a part of the mighty consciousness of God. Have you thought on this? Have you thought with which holy release the substance of God's own being descended in the mighty light rays from your divine presence to raise up a temple to house the Most High God? Have you recognized that in the Holy of Holies, where your own heart altar is constructed, the glory of God shineth forth in the feelings of oneness which come to you at times, and at other times do not seem so apparent to your being? Know then that in all ages communion is required ere man is able to enter in to the heart of his God victory. Communion, precious ones, is the requirement of every hour. But there is a barrier, man-made and created, erected, almost with fervor, between this communion and the human creation, which is the barrier. Purity then is needed, and it is for this reason that I speak to you of that substance. The substance composing your being, which cometh forth from God hourly, is a strand whiter than fuller's earth of heavenly substance, spun into a thready radiance, and then loomed into a garment of cosmic purity. This is man, the manifestation as God sees him. This is the substance which the angels are familiar with. And this is the substance which they understand so well how to weave and how to create, and which they love, and which you love also in your heart of hearts. This holy substance that has actually been utilized to make all of you is this day, as in many days past, filled with gross density and the soil of impurity and the unconsecrated energies which mankind have too long paid allegiance to. The breathing holy flame in the Holy of Holies of thy heart gives to thee at times a vision of the meaning of life, and you yearn to escape from the senseless round of human abuses which have plagued the earth for so long. You feel a desire for purity, and this desire mounts up as noble aspiration and motive until it is supplanted by more of mankind's desecrations, for the altars of God have been broken down, and idols have been enthroned where only God ought to stand. This is that desecration spoken of very clearly in the writings of Daniel. When the abomination of desolation standeth in the holy place where it ought not, let men flee to the mountains. The mountains are places of spiritual refuge. The mountains are the pure aspirations of man, which rise above all human discord and decay to the summit of man's existence, to his God presence to the octaves of purity. The abomination of desolation is fulfilled in the words that state so clearly that God has fled from the temples of man's desecration and departed from the midst of those who have not given honor to the vessels of his house. And by this I refer to those sacramental internal actions which are intended to produce the perfection of immortal life in all of the affairs of mankind. This path, the path outlined so clearly by Saint Germain, that leads to your cosmic freedom, the use of the violet flame, the consecration of your energies to your own mighty I Am presence, is the fulfillment of the return to the celestial city. It is the forsaking of the burning Sodom and Gomorrah, and it is the entering into the new Jerusalem that cometh down from God out of heaven, arrayed as a bride adorned to meet her husband. You, precious ones, one and all, regardless of your gender in physical form, masculine or feminine, are all intended to be the bride of your own holy Christ self. His garments are intended not to trail in the dust of mortal concepts as a will-o'-the-wisp flickering across the desert sands. His will is intended to be a tangible garment of spiritual light and power, descending from on high to magnify all in your bones. That is the supporting glow ray of light's victory. Do you know what I mean? Hear this then. All of your structure, physical, mental, emotional, and etheric, is intended to be pure. Those who heard Master Moriah in Los Angeles during this summer conference will well recall his fervor in declaring, "Let the muddied stream come clear." I say, let the spiritual fact cloak your bones with that which maketh you spiritually merry. And may you indeed reflect in all of your substance that purity which will enable you, both within and without, to commune with the sacred essence of God. For Holy Communion is exactly that. Holy Communion is best achieved and accomplished then when an individual is himself like unto God. For how can you join in holy wedlock that which is impurity with that which is purity? It cannot be done. And so that which occurs in your own meetings as you assemble, as you are this day, that raises you up, is a cosmic action whereby the angels of assistance do repress all the substance in your world which is dense and misqualified, and push it down, compounding it as rock to the lower reaches of your being. And you raise yourself out of all of that and enter into that airy spirit of cosmic purity which is reflected in the air you breathe. Your heart, as you have been told before, beats in rhythm then with God's own impulses, and the mighty bellows of the lungs taking in the holy air, fan the fire spark of immortal freedom on the altar of your heart. And you are raised to the holy place in consciousness, where you are able to see God, and you feel that vibratory action which you will one day know permanently as victory. Your victory individually per se. For I ask you, our victory has been achieved. Can our victory profit you unless you achieve your own? Can our purity suffice to be laid upon the cosmic altar for you? Can we vicariously cut you free from all that has bound you? Think you not that if this were possible, that we would not have done it long ago for the earth and its environs? I tell you, yea, we would have done it speedily. And yet the law, in all of its cosmic action of cosmic love, intends each one to appropriate from on high the fullest methods which will give each one their own freedom. Let all then regard the substance that they have felt as their own, that ought to come into communion with God, as substance to be purified. Let all recognize the violet flame as a holy offering of God's rainbow rays, the highest advocate for mankind, to be invoked daily in full and intense action, so that the flame of freedom may release men from bondage. And then let men no longer build impurity by drawing holy energy and its strands into their being and causing the jangle of discordant notes to ring out in the universe where only purity ought to be. There are many young men recently who have come to our retreat at Luxor. And these young men are sometimes astounded when they are told the requirements for their achievement of the ascension in a span of 25 years. When they are told the necessary dedication which must be practiced in our retreat, some of them have recoiled, for they did not see how they could do it. Well, blessed ones, with God there is always a way, and the very fact that we achieved our victory and that other ascended beings have achieved theirs, the demonstration of beloved Jesus and Mother Mary, shows to all, both men and women, that victory in the ascension, in the light, is possible for those who will dedicate themselves to it and know that with God all things are possible. We do not expect that you shall utilize discordant energy in order to achieve your freedom. We recognize that discordant energy must be shattered. It must be broken up. It must be released from the patterns of discord imposed upon it and transmuted into a resurrection of regeneration. Then this generation will be a new generation. And this age will be an age of victory. So long as men endure the confusion of their own wrong concepts, they cannot possibly obtain from God the refreshment of progress and illumination and understanding. Men must forsake utterly all that bind them and that has bound them, and they must have greater compassion upon themselves than they have had in the past. Do these condemn thee? Nay, Lord, there are none who condemn us. Neither do I condemn thee. Go thou in peace and sin no more. Error has no power, blessed ones, except that which you give it. The momentums you have builded up for and on behalf of error in the past cannot endure the blasts of the sacred fire if you continually invoke it and do all in your power to walk uprightly, to love mercy, and to love God and man made in his image. The confusion of the world has entered into the hearts of the children of light many, many times, causing them to abide in a fog of untruth and error. When they are alone and ought to enjoy the holy and sweet communion with their own divine presence, free from all outside interference and contact, mankind frequently turn to recrimination of themselves or others in thought. They permit the serpentine uprising of unregenerate energies from their own past to come forth and to tell them that certain individuals are plotting against them or attempting to deceive them or practicing a form of hypocrisy. Let all cut themselves free in the name of cosmic purity from the acceptance of any negative idea about any individual upon the planet, for you cannot change them from their errors or cleanse them from their errors by the use of error concepts. You can only give mankind cosmic purity and freedom by the invocation of the fresh energy which God releases each moment to you and the qualification of your world with that pure substance. You can only call for the transmutation by the violet fire and the flame of mercy and forgiveness of all wrongly qualified energy of the past. And then each of you, wearing the garments of freedom and forgiveness, shall find your own path easier as you make it possible for others to enter into the kingdom of God. You are perhaps familiar with the statement how some will not enter into the kingdom of God themselves, and they hinder those who are entering in. I urge you all, in the name of cosmic purity, to recognize that the electric spark of cosmic creativity, the radioactive power that is locked in the heart of every electron, can be released to flash forth through every part of your being. That the ascended masters can cause all negative force to quail before the God self within you. And you can in this age walk the earth as God's, wholly His, and then wholly His manifestation. First comes dedication. First comes consecration. First cometh God. Obedience to Him will make you indeed truly His. And then the words, ye are God's, will not only mean that you belong unto Him, but that ye are God, the God of very gods. Your own I am presence is the fullness of all that ever has been, of all that is, and of all that ever shall be. Time and eternity, and the tides in the affairs of men may rise and fall, but no rising and falling can occur in that divine presence which is the same yesterday, today, and forever. In this Christly consciousness, let your garments shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of the Father, with a divine determination infusing your being, that all past things are prologue, as El Morya has said so often, and that the future is yours to behold. As you walk today, so shall thy morrow be. And if freedom's beat would be thy own, and you would heed no defeat, but would atone for all that is past, then find thy freedom in the light of God that never fails. I thank you. Holy Serapis, the Brotherhood at Luxor, our hearts are touched by thy words. And as we extinguish these flames, we ask that the flame of thy word shall burn in our hearts each day until they become fulfilled as the Word made flesh that dwelt among us. We have abode in the presence of one another. May we abide in the presence of the Eternal One. And in the purity that Serapis has brought to us this morning, may we always dwell. I think if we do, we shall ultimately attain our happiness. It cannot be otherwise. This law of God works. Please rise. We pledge to thee, O Serapis, our hearts. You may do this with me. Our heads and our hands, to the best of our ability and understanding, we will do God's will each day. And as we part now, in a physical sense, and bring this service to a close, we ask that the consecration of heart, of head, and of hand shall keep us always a part of thy holy band until we are all ascended and free. And may the light spread from this place this day over our land, over America, and over the world, and bring in the dawn of a new day when victory in heart and head and hand is the victory of the whole world. In the name of the cosmic Christ, Lord Maitreya, we salute you all.